us saying that mental health is a real thing.
But
Depression
is he
is
recommending
real.
people to get help? Like actual, go see this specialist, go see that specialist.
Has he said that?
See, those are two different
See,
things.
because I don't want to say he has, but then I don't want to say he hasn't because my memory is not that
I
good.
know you.
He has,
has.
okay,
Okay,
because
so-
he's the kind of person who
So you see, for
would-
me, that is very responsible to do that.
He doesn't. He's not one of them that
Says come
It
to
doesn't
me.
say-
he respects experts. So you
Yeah.
understand.
Which church is this?
Covenant
Covenant
Nation.
Nation or Covenant Christian Center. House of Culture.
Covenant Nation.
It's not Covenant Nation. I say Covenant Christian Center because some people don't.
Well, you know there are a lot of pastors who
Covenant
think
Nation
they
is really.
who want to pray these problems away.
Yes.
So
Exactly.
today you have the first grade. Okay, I know. I'm trying to break up this conversation.
It's 31.
Calm down, we're reading the stories.
Are we, guys? Are we ready?
I'm ready, man.
Music.
Are you ready to start?
No,
Yes,
go.
right now.
I could.
Transcend
I will
you
get
with
ready.
lyrical grooves.
So you go.
Lift
Daddy, take a
you
breath, it's
into
all right.
love as you flow through.
Daddy, please let us manage our time. So who is air traffic control?
It's
Manage
frequency.
our time.
It's
We're
not
1 minute
me.
behind. We're good.
Friday, I'm
Love
driving the
music,
desk. I shall
love
not be playing
life.
timekeeper.
You're listening to Mind News.
The Smooth Breakfast presents the headlines, the stories, the news,
We know all about it.
in-depth analysis of national current affairs.
It's in the news.
Freshly pressed on Smooth 98.1.
You first. First Bank. You first, first bank.
Smooth 98.1, love music, love life. If you just joined us, you're just in time. It's time for Freshly Pressed 981, where we take you through detailed analysis of stories making rounds in the dailies this morning. And you're invited to be a part of our conversation. You can do that across all platforms. On WhatsApp, please send your messages to us on 0809-444-0981. And also, please use the hashtag Freshly Pressed 981 on Twitter to be a part of the conversation as well. Finally, we're streaming live. You can reach out to us on YouTube. It's youtube.com/smooth981FM Lagos. And leading us through conversations this morning is Waji. Waji, good morning.
Good morning, Kade. Good morning, Shopware. What's happening, Tunde? And good morning, Lagos.
Good morning. And also, Tunde is with us this morning. Tunde Kufi, good morning.
Monday.
You're back on Monday?
No, it's
All
a
right, that's a
feel-good
good one.
Friday.
Oh, goodness. Good morning, Kylie Baker. Good morning, Shopper.
All right. Don't forget, guys, just jump in on the numbers we mentioned earlier. And of course, we're streaming live on YouTube. So let's get into the first story.
.com/smooth981FM Lagos.
Yes. That one.
Okay, go ahead, Kaide. Let's start off.
Okay, so from the Punch newspaper, this one comes to you today. Yoruba group INC and the Yoruba group seeks to join. Oh, excuse me. Waji, this one comes to you.
Right.
INC Yoruba group seeks to join CNG's suit on Biafran agitation.
I know, I'll take it.
Okay, all right. Let me just put context to this one. So the demand for a referendum on the planned secession of Biafra from Nigeria gathered momentum on Thursday, with the Yoruba and ethnic nationalities filing an application to be part of the suit filed by the coalition of northern groups. Also, you should know that the CNG had gone to court to seek a referendum to determine the fate of Biafra and other separatist groups in Nigeria. So, what are your thoughts about this?
All right, thanks, Kylie. So, the thing is, or the truth is, if you look at this, I would, if you think and you look at what groups like IPOB have done, right, and a lot of the agitation that has come out of the southeast, right, I would say that this is this approach, which is the legal approach, by the way of going through the law, working within the system of governance,
Yes.
working within the law, is the appropriate way to go, right? So the coalition of northern groups said, look, they filed a motion saying, look, if there's this much agitation in one part of the country, I mean, just if you're to use that analogy, that if a certain part of your body is ill or something, and it's maybe causing the whole, it's probably not the best knowledge because they're not causing the whole to be ill, but there is quite a bit of disaffection. So perhaps you should let them go and let them determine their own futures. And it's interesting that it's coming from a position of northern governors, northern groups.
Okay.
Right. It might also be a type, as almost in a sense, as an experiment. Look, can we within the legal framework, instead of killing ourselves and running amok of the law, go within guidelines so that a certain group can self-determine. Now other groups have joined, and this is what you get. It speaks to beyond. I mean, I like the fact that it's they're working within the frameworks of the law.
Yes.
Or you begin. It's no surprise that other groups want to join. Like the Yoruba, there's a Yoruba
Yoruba
ethnic
Nation's
nationality,
decision.
yes, and the ethic one as well. And obviously that's had some impact in terms of the hearing of the case. I mean, the hearing itself is rife with all things Nigerian. The judge, being absent, long adjournments, the judge being indisposed. If one judge is indisposed, perhaps he gets assigned someone else.
I just want to ask one question. So these groups coming together saying that they want this referendum done. Do you think that they speak for everyone? Because some people would say that these are groups, but they don't speak for me, and we're all from different tribes. So do they speak for everyone?
Okay, now it's very hard for you to find one group that will speak for and speak the mind of every single person within that nation. That's why but you might and you will find groups that carry on the popular opinion, right? That's why they're either called populist movements, because the vast majority, it represents thinking perhaps of the vast majority. Now it's interesting that, like I said, it's a coalition of northern groups that that pushes not even the Biafrans.
Okay.
Yeah, and they're saying, look, we're doing this to save the country, ourselves, and the future of the country. If you understand. Now, I mean, obviously, the other part of it is they're becoming violent already. Most of you can see a bit that there's some tongue in cheek there, but the principle of it is right and is correct. And the last point I want to end on is, if we don't fix the nation, if the country doesn't work for everyone, we'll keep seeing more and more of these issues. You find a lot of people in ECA, IPOB are filling a vacuum, right? Left that vacuum. It's the nation, it's the federal government, or it's this current arrangement is creating vacuums, and it's not just happening in the southeast. It's happening everywhere else. Is why the agitation
In the west, in the south now.
Exactly, and you keep seeing more and more of this. How far do we want to go? I mean, there's so many groups. In a short while, the TIV will say, oh, we want to sell. Where does it end? Do you understand? Let's fix the whole, and perhaps we'll have a much better nation.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Premium Times news coming in now. Reps order probe into 178,459 firearms, ammunition missing from police armory. Now, the House of Representatives referenced a 2019 report by the Office of the Auditor General of the Federation, which reported that number of arms that could not be accounted for by the police. Now, the House of Reps mandated its ad hoc committee on arms to investigate this alleged 178,459 arms reported to be missing by the Auditor General. What do you have to say about this?
This is very scary, number one, because it now speaks to why you have a proliferation of arms within the Nigerian population. It now landing in the hands of people who want to go into criminal activities, and there may be some private individuals who just want to happen to own a fire weapon to protect themselves from situations. You do have a lot of people who happen to own weapons. Maybe they don't necessarily use it all the time for illegal activities, but they use it for personal protection. But either way, what this now speaks to is, how is the federal government going to address it? Because you need a license to carry a firearm in Nigeria, and it is almost impossible to get. You literally need to have a security clearance as a private individual to own a firearm. So if you happen to have over 170,000 missing weapons because they just cannot be accounted for, then that lets you know that there are a great number of individuals walking around illegally owning firearms or just happening to carry it around. And this now creates a lot of problems, because when these weapons now land in the hands of people with ill intentions, it begins to create even further problems. That's why you see the level of banditry going on. That's why you see the level of terrorism going on, because they happen to have access to weaponry. So when you combine this unfortunate proliferation of illegal weapons and then people's ill intentions, it's a recipe for disaster. So I think it's a bold step. It's a way to now begin to start, okay, well, how do we even begin to account for the fact that these weapons are missing? And then we can now begin to do further investigations, because I do believe, I hope, that each of these weapons are allocated to certain individuals, and you need to sign out these weapons. So that way, if you can now begin to trace which weapons are missing, you can now begin to connect it to the individuals that they were assigned to.
Now, the House did the report actually referenced this and said that, quite frankly, they're not even sure about number one, the cost of the
Right.
arms, because there's just such poor record keeping.
Right.
So when you talk about tracing this,
Well, this is the point I'm trying to make. So there are two reports, because the report now comes to the particular precinct or the particular zone, and they now report that nothing's missing. But when the institute itself now begins to dig deeper, they show that it is missing. So you have to now begin to get some level of intelligence, begin to really ask probing questions, and then just begin to unpeel the layers of the onion one by one. But people have to know that there needs to be an audit and there has to be accountability. And through that process alone, you now begin to hopefully have people come forward, confessions and things of that nature. And then I think in addition to that, it has to be a very, very, very aggressive approach towards finding these weapons.
now what would you have to say, YG? This report came out 2019. We're in 2022, and the focus is on it. How many years later? And considering the fact also that it seems to be a widely known fact, when we see the government coming out, the federal government coming out saying, "Oh, we've got $8 billion worth of new equipment for you. Don't let it go missing." What would you say to that?
It's one of the unfortunate challenges of when you have, poor governance in the way that we manage ourselves in Nigeria. We just happen to take things by chance. We don't take things seriously. We don't put the right structures in place to prevent what now creates these problems. That's what now creates the lag in timeline between when something is first noticed and when any action is taken. And it goes back to just how intentional we need to be with how we manage ourselves, how we strengthen our institutions to prevent these problems from occurring over and over again. Because without which, we're going to continue to have this conversation 3 years from now. So once again, it's a step in the right direction, and I think just what needs to be followed up by this is deliberate, intentional formulas that will now allow you to begin to track things.
Do you expect to see that?
I hope so. That's what I'm going to answer that.
All right. Thank you for that. Let's quickly jump into some of our messages here. This one from Yinka Bulu responding to our first story. He says, guys, let's pump some brakes here. I'm a Yoruba man, but I don't remember which WhatsApp group meeting we agreed to join a court case. It's disrespectful and annoying to hear things like this. Please don't save me. God will save me, not you. When GEG was there, did they agitate? No.
Left to me,
Yeah.
all of them should be rounded up, locked up, and charged with public nuisance. How many of these agitators have PVC? Yinka asks.
Let's see. Let's go back to the message. Ms. Chen says, missing firearms, upcoming elections.
Samuel from Lekki says, IPOP alone has a large membership and several followers. We've seen the pictures. It's easy for anyone to say they don't speak for him or her, or for anyone to assume every Southeast is a member or wants Biafra. That confusion can only be settled by a free and fair referendum, so that we can either agree that Biafra should leave or stay. It's been done in many other places.
Okay.
Tony comes in to say the case filed by the coalition of the northern groups regarding Biafra is assuming an interest dimension. Hope they haven't miscalculated this time. The fear of loss of oil wealth may force them to apply to withdraw the case, but the defendants would urge the courts to proceed with it. We are observing. And this is Tony. But let's move on to our next story. And it talks about subsidy. Okay, so this one comes to you. So NEC, that's the National Economic Council, says yesterday allayed fears of Nigerians about the possible removal of fuel subsidy early in 2022, saying the policy would remain for now. It, however, did not rule out the possibility of the subsidy being removed before the end of this year. So, Tony, we saw this. We've been hearing since last year that, the subsidy is going to be removed, basically. But now there seems to be some type of suspension on this. What do you make of this?
No, not a suspension. It's just a continuation of the song and the dance. And it's a song and dance that we've had for years now, to be honest. So if you remember earlier in the week, there's a story around illegal deductions from the FAC account and
Yes.
the state governments, going up in arms and rows. So that sort of put fuel subsidies back in the spotlight to say, okay, we are still paying fuel subsidies. And guess what? Last year, it's estimated, they don't have exact figures, which again is one of the issues. Remember, the governor said there's a lack of transparency, but it's estimated that we spent in excess of 2 trillion or about 2 trillion naira
Yes.
on fuel subsidies. This is money that could have, gone into, building up neighborhoods. This is money that could have gone into, building roads, infrastructure, hospitals, education, for instance. But we spent it on subsidy, and on subsidy that doesn't, filter through and or benefit, most of the country. Many analysts will argue that the vast majority of that money is stolen anyway, right? Then even if you say that, through, because it's again, it's not transparent in many ways. But even if you then do say that, okay, subsidies were actually indeed spent, further analysis says, look, does this actually benefit every single Nigerian? There's a report that says it only benefits one third. It's very simplistic to say it was only those with vehicles, because we all do move around in some shape or form. You don't have to have a car itself, but I mean, you would go through transportation and you pay for it.
Light situation,
your
generators,
your food and other produce get moved because so it has an impact literally on everyone. But there's some analysis that says, look, the direct impact of subsidy payments doesn't touch every single person. So why does the entire nation have to bear this? I mean, there've been warnings by I think by the World Bank as well, saying that look, and it's clear that we really can't afford to do this. We can't continue to do this. But again, this is why you see the double speak coming out of the mouth. I mean, a member of the of NEC, Mr. Bismarck Rwani says, look, essentially, this we want to remove this. This is our advice to remove. But however, let's be, which is his balancing expectations, that its actual removal may be hampered, and this quote, may be hampered by political considerations and labor union activities.
Can I just
So
ask
political consideration is what's left us here, and then labor union activities is what stopped us, is what made us sit on the streets years ago during JJ's time when he was about to do us a favor, and we all set out dining tables on the streets and shut down Lagos and in the large parts of the country.
Okay, but here's the thing, and I think it's what's on the minds of a lot of people as well. Could it be that it's because, and I think a lot of people might be thinking about this, that it's because of the election that's happening, in the coming months? That's why this is put on hold, because that's what's on the back of the minds of a lot of people.
Look, you can't actually set political considerations right there. You can't avoid the electioneering. I mean, we've already started seeing, pictures of our able governor, as a hairdressing understudy. So it's campaign time. Things will happen.
All right.
Okay, from the Punch newspaper, federal government to establish 18 modular refineries in oil-producing states. This was on Wednesday, and this, according to the Minister of State for Environment, Chief Sharon Ikezo, disclosing this in a statement issued by her ministry in Abuja. Now, going by the plan, the government will have to establish about 18 refineries in the country's 6 major oil-producing states in the Niger Delta, including Rivers, Bayelsa, Akwa Ibom, Delta, Edo, and Cross River, saying that its objective was to, because this is a twofer, Waji, isn't it? In a bid to boost local refinement of crude, and also to halt the illegal artisanal refinery that, has been a major issue.
Right. Well, I mean, this addresses primarily the issue of how do you now bring your local refineries online, and like you said, is also to curb the issues around bunkering. And I just want to quickly state what a modular refinery is. I'm just going to read it from Wikipedia. A modular refinery is a simplified refinery requiring significantly less capital investment than traditional full-scale refinery facilities. So the initial process for crude distillation now allows for a simple distillation of crude oil in a low-octane diesel, kerosene, and residual fuel oil. So basically, it's just an easier, cheaper, and more efficient way of now building a full-scale refinery. So here's the flip side to this, Shopper, and I think this is where things need to get interesting. If I was a Kazo, this is what I would do. I would actually engage those that I happen to know are now participating in illegal bunkering and bring them online to be the individuals that work with us to now make sure these modular refineries are working. Here's why. The best way to catch a thief is oftentimes to work with a thief. Okay? And you have to now be very creative because you need to ensure that these individuals do not continue to participate in illegal bunkering. Okay? So what you now do is say, okay, fine. Since you already have the knowledge, since you're already doing this anyway, and you're creating issues, you're not regulated properly, you're not taking into consideration the environmental impact of the way that you're doing it, but you happen to have the wherewithal and the capacity to do it, how about we work together? How about we work together to ensure that through these modular refineries, number one, we can now eradicate whatever illegal activities you're doing, and number two, we can now do it properly, and number three, the ultimate solution is done, which is address the needs of the market so that we stop importing
But
fuel.
isn't this exactly what they're doing, though?
I haven't seen anything
Because
that
he says,
says
in a bid to find alternative sources of livelihood for artisanal refineries and to encourage them to disengage completely from their illegal activities. She goes on to say that the government will also train them on environmental management, including skills required for oil
That's-
spill management.
that's not the same thing. You know, it's not. I understand the point, but we need to be a bit more intentional. Okay, so you need to ensure you directly engage these guys.
Literally, the main objective is to enable those participating in illegal/artisanal oil refining to transit into operation of modular refineries to be run legitimately as a business under proper technical, commercial, and environmental regulation.
Yeah, I hear that.
So-
Yeah, but
Is that not what
okay.
you were saying?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Because what I'm saying is
Explain
we
to
need
me,
to
please.
name who are these individuals one by one. I mean, I remember there was a video that went out this week where WK was addressing a particular individual that
Talked about
owned-
18 illegal
Mhm.
Thank
refineries
you.
last
That's the
week.
point I'm trying to
Mhm.
make. That's what we need to do. It can't just be talking in hyperbole about this intention to now bring these people online. We need to be very specific
Okay.
so that we can now begin to engage these individuals and say, let's work with you to do it.
But there are
I-
hundreds of them. That's the
That's
thing.
that's the point, Kyrie.
So
This
have
is
a program.
exactly the point. You've just hit the nail on the head. Because there's so many, you need to bring them online. So that way, because what now happens that if you're participating in a legal refinery
Mhm.
and I read this, I'm going to go into the shadows. You're not going to find me because the first thing I'm going to think is, okay, you're coming after me. I'm not going to necessarily believe it as much as your words are out there that your intent is to work with me. But the point is, if we're now directly engaging, then we can now be intentional with the purpose, excuse me, to say we want to work with you. So it's a two-step level.
Understood.
They've covered the first step, which is great. The second step is we need to now begin to identify these individuals. And then number two, we need to directly engage them to bring them online. That's the only way you solve this problem.
All right. Thank you for the clarification, Margie.
OPEC
got
says
messages.
complete fuel subsidy removal will not happen anytime soon, especially not by this government. Few months to election. It will take a very popular regime to achieve this. Moreover, this subsidy was meant to be for just 6 months upon inception. It's over 40 years now, and it has not been removed. The reason is not far-fetched. And Binga Kamu.
So I just want to respond to that. You see, Kennedy said, Tunde said something that was very powerful. We had a president that actually wanted to do this, and we kicked against it. We
Yeah.
did.
It was quite sudden.
And people didn't understand it at the time.
No,
What does
it
that even
literally-
mean?
it was-
Rip off the band-aid. No, let's stop cuddling ourselves and let's take responsibility. We had a government, and I'm not doing it because I'm a fan of that administration. I'm just trying to be very clear to Tunde's point. We had a government that said this is the time to do it now. We need to get to it, and we literally shut down Nigeria for 10 days because we didn't want it. So we can keep arguing about, oh, it's going to take 6 months this time, but let's look at ourselves. And let's be honest, because any government that comes out and says they want to remove subsidy, and these are going to be the consequences, whether we say we're going to do it tomorrow or a year from now, Nigerians are going to kick against it.
Let's
So
speak on
until we wake up and say, let's be ready to suffer the pain so that the long-term component works, we are going to continue to have this conversation.
Okay, speaking about this
I
conversation,
wish we could, but we couldn't.
let's talk about this story, which extends from what we're discussing now. Be fair in assessing my government. This is President Muhammadu Buhari. He's telling Nigerians, and this comes to you today. So we've talked about subsidy a number of times and talking about modular refineries, amongst other things. So what do you make of all of this?
Okay, so in assessing anything, right, you have to look at the evidence, right? And you have to look at the situation. You look at the previous situation, and you look at where you are to assess, right? Nothing stands in a vacuum. It's going to be and it's relative to performance in something else, right? So let's look at Buhari's government, and if you're looking at it, as a citizen of the country, you look at it across a number of indices. You look at it across the economy. You look at it across security, right? Two major ones, and you can see on the economic front. Look, we all recall the recent interview given by the president, where it was laid out to him that a number of the economic indices are trending down from the time that he took over. Now he can argue that he took over at a particularly difficult time,
And
when
there was
global
also a
oil
recession.
prices were coming. There was no recession when he took over.
Okay.
Right? there was a many will argue that there was an oil shock. Yes, a global one, but somehow his administration turned what was a minor oil shock into a recession, right? So the recession came after he came in, and the arguments were that the administration didn't move quickly enough and act on a number of things, stable the ship. So if you look at it now, his performance on the economic front, they had two major things economically, two major programs. There's an economic sustainability program that's done fairly well. They introduced a number of social needs. Yeah, exactly. A number of social safety net programs, a lot of programs sort of help artisans and youth. So they've done fairly well in that. Then the other main prong of the government was the economic recovery plan. It has a long name, I can't remember, but essentially the recovery one. That hasn't done so well. To be fair,
on the security front, and also what has he done? Do you think that you can even pass mark on that?
Going to the security front, right? It's mixed. Maybe at best I'll say amber, right? To be honest, I'll say it's amber. It's not green, and it's an amber that tends more towards red. Because the truth, the data, the truth is out there. There's not anyone here saying anything about anything, right? And that was the one hope that this administration would, help us, put it to bed, was a major thrust of his campaign. He talks about measure me against my campaign promises. I'm sure if they list them out, and do an assessment, then it will be clear for all to see.
All right, thank you for that.
We move on. Hangar
If I smile about this story.
No, wait, which one? No. This is not something to smile about. Trust me. 3 out of 10 Nigerians are mentally sick. This, according to the House of Representatives, saying that 3 out of every 10 Nigerians have one form of mental illness or another. Putting the World Health Organization statistics, the House added that over 20 million Nigerians were currently suffering from various degrees of mental illness or disorder without psychiatric health care. And so it's mandated its committees on health institutions and healthcare services to liaise with the Federal Ministry of Health towards improving mental health facilities around the country. And Waji, I know that you have things to say about this, so let's go straight to you.
Well, number one, I think I completely agree with this statistic. I think I actually take it a step further to say maybe it's 2.5 out of 3 that are actually suffering from mental health. And I think part of the problem is we refuse to name and define what mental health is as an actual illness and a disease that is oftentimes caused and aggravated by stress. This entire country is stressful. You cannot live in Nigeria as a Nigerian and not say that you are stressed, no matter how bountiful your situation might be, because you are affected, even indirectly, by every circumstance that this country now puts forward to you. The challenge is that we refuse to get help. The challenge is that we refuse to acknowledge that it is a problem. The challenge is that we refuse to use the actual resources that exist to actually walk you through this particular disease, because mental health is a situation where the chemical components in your brain actually become imbalanced, and it now has an impact on your behavior. Is what causes depression, is what causes anxiety, and then the further knock-on effects of that are hypertension and unfortunately at the same time cancer and other physical ailments. These things are tightly connected. The challenge is that we continue to look at anything going on from a physiological point of view, not physiological point of view, as some kind of spiritual problem. And then you unfortunately have a lot of situations where people want to pray these problems away, and they now start going to specific individuals to now seek help, people who are not qualified in mental illness and taking on mental disease to now help you. And this is a very passionate one for me, because I've seen too many issues where I have seen people suffering from depression, and they now go to a pastor who is not qualified in mental health, and that person is now administering some kind of care.
I would ask you, this is it a chicken or egg situation, right? And today I see you. We will come to you in just a second. But I would like to say, is it a chicken or egg situation wherein you say that people go straight to the religious side of things, that they're not making use of the facilities that are available, but then we take a look at institutions that are there to actually deal with mental health illnesses, and we don't have enough of them. We've got 8 neuropsychiatric hospitals, federal neuropsychiatric hospitals,
and 131
and then we have,
psychiatrists. Yeah.
yes, those are very low
so
numbers.
Those are two different things. The lack of resources should not now mean you go to an unqualified individual to get help.
So if we take a look at Yaba, which many people have done, and many articles have been written about this, many documentaries as well, you see people queuing up for lines, trying to get beds, not being able to for however long, for quite a long time, and being turned away time and time again.
Mhm.
Are you saying that, oh, they should just, what should they do? Wait at
No,
home,
those-
twiddle their thumbs?
No,
No, I'm wondering.
I'm
because,
about to respond.
yes.
So the point is, because of you cannot now use the fact that we don't have the resources to justify the reasons why we go to the wrong people for help. I'm sorry, I'll never accept that. So
I'm
the
not
point,
using that to justify. You said that they would rather
yeah, but that's
go
what, yeah,
the spiritual route.
Yes.
I'm saying that, and they don't make use of the facilities available. I'm saying we have facilities that are overrun.
I'm coming to that. But
I
also,
wish we could
I'm
answer
so-
all of that, but,
but
we're
also-
totally out of time.
totally understand.
I'm sorry,
Continue
guys.
so YouTube.
I'm
I'm
sorry,
so
guys.
sorry.
But we see all your messages, Dikbo, Yinka, Sheung, Benga, Tony, Kazim, all your messages, we see them and we appreciate the messages. Thank you so much, Tunde. Always a pleasure having you here. You can find him on social media. He's at Tunde Okufi, at Big Coops on social media, and at the Corporate MC with a K, that's YG.
Okay.
I think we may have to continue this conversation on YouTube because today I really wanted to say something. I'm so
Sorry,
sorry.
Tunde.
It's all right. When what is desirable is not available, what available becomes desirable.
Ooh.
That's what happens.
Stay with us, Vegas. We'll be back after this.
You first. First bang.
I'm listening. Go on.
That's really what it is, man. Look,
It
we
doesn't
just
make
don't
it
have
right,
enough
guys.
people. You
Of course,
understand?
it doesn't
Right.
make it
So
right.
why
Why
So-
make it right?
so why
It
you-
doesn't make
Why
it
nobody said
right.
it's right?
It
Nobody
doesn't
said
make
it's
it right.
right.
Okay,
Also,
will you
part of
accept?
mental
Will you
health.
accept? But will you accept?
All right, let me
going
make
to
it.
saying that
Watch,
because you don't have
watch,
enough
yeah, watch.
hospitals.
Let me
Then
let
you
me
go
go
to
in.
some quack
Watch.
doctor.
No,
Will you
but
accept
it's
that?
not
Watch.
that.
Let me go in on my perspective. Let
Right,
me go
now
on my
say
perspective.
something.
Right. So you are right, and you know what? I understand your perspective, and also because I know you, right, and I know your yeah.
You're fantastic.
Yeah. So I understand and I know your belief systems, and I respect that. The thing is, we have 130
Psychiatrist.
psychiatrists.
It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make any sense. A lot needs to be done now, and like I said, when what is required is available, what's available then becomes
I
desirable.
agree with that.
Now, you know, the truth is whether and there's studies backing this, right? Religion does play a part in mental health and in maintaining mental health.
Yes, and by
Through
the way,
through the ages, now they might not be now. Stay with me.
I'm
Stay
staying
with
me.
him.
I'm
Stay
staying
with him.
I mean, really, what is mental health and mental balance, right? It's on some level, it's being able to accept things that you can't change, right? And sort of instead of trying to rationalize things in your head, take it out into some bigger abstract thing beyond me. I'm trying to speak in agnostic terms and in being unreligious about this, yeah. That why are all these forces that are playing out? Why is it me or is some external source and force that's beyond me? Right? It's a powerful tool to help the human mind rationalize and accept its place and its position instead of running mad on the road. It helps you manage stress, right? So religion was the first thing that kind of help people manage, kind of their mental health. Now the problem, and I see where you're going, is that in today's world, and maybe even through the ages, that it's open to abuse naturally, right? I mean, today, you have religion,
anything that has
else.
humans in it.
Yeah, it's open to abuse, and it's open to a very particular type of abuse.
Very
right?
true.
Very particular.
So-
that's the issue with it.
Very
It's
true.
open to a very particular type of abuse.
So
now that's the issue. But the truth is, does religion help people stay in check? If there, I'd argue
So-
if there wasn't.
Can I
people
say
more
something?
No, I just want to
mad.
quickly jump to this. I agree with everything you're saying.
Oh God, we have
But
Lagos
here-
talks.
But
Oh.
here's my thing.
Oh,
You
I
do
don't
know, Tunde, that there are specific mental health cases
Talk
that
about
require medication.
Stress in
Yeah,
Lagos.
yeah. No, definitely.
That require. So this
No,
is
without a doubt.
so this is where I'm going. So if you're schizophrenic,
How is that a
there's
feel good
certain
Friday?
medication you
That you
need
need to take. Yeah.
to take.
So it's not a pep
So-
talk, regardless of
So
whatever.
my
it is.
Well,
point
it
is,
can be
I
a human
understand what
interest
you're
story.
saying. I get it, but my issue is this: is that you can't just treat it saying okay that it addresses it. What if you need actual medication? Because at the point that you start getting schizophrenic, it's actual physical things happening to you.
Sure.
The
So-
chemicals,
so-
the
so-
chemicals in
Very
your brain
true.
are out
And
of
then-
whack.
And when you actually do need medication, the
But how do you
responsible
know?
thing, the responsible thing,
But how
it's
do you
in
know?
levels. Look at it this
No, but
way.
the person
If
talking
someone
counseling you
someone
know.
has, if someone is suffering, if someone is suffering
the
from,
person counseling you would
Yeah.
know, and then
and
would
it
refer
would be the
you.
responsible
the
thing.
pastor
be
would
to
know that you need medication.
Why?
Yes.
Why?
Oh,
Why?
wow.
No. It's not that. That's not the point.
No,
If
that's what
someone,
you
if someone,
said.
wait, hold on. If someone is dealing or suffering from mental
Guys, my
health,
hand is tired.
What? what's his first support system, or the
It's his
first
family.
His family, right. By extension, you know, for a number of people, they also view the church, the religious, as part of that, right? And family obviously most likely sits within a faith, right?
Of course.
So then they will speak to. So when someone is
Would you
dealing
guys
with
like to
stress,
stay behind?
We can talk about this.
Do you have time? Let's talk about
counseling,
this for Lagos
right?
Talks.
So the counseling starts at home. It then may extend to the church, but then maybe at some point in time, and guess what? The vast majority of issues are caught and are captured there. Things that don't even really need probably a psychiatrist. Things that you just need to sit on a psychologist's couch and talk through and you're fine. It'll capture a major number of things. But then there will be a group of it that needs proper professional skilled medical help. Hopefully, those ones get referred.
And on that note, we end Freshly Pressed on YouTube.
The absence of regulation, these things now go all over the place.